Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Welcome back to part 2 of video number 3 on controls. Today we are going to go for Excel VBA Child's Play. In our today's video, we will see how to work with do while and do until loop. So when you're working on do while or do until loop, so we will learn how to work with the conditions here. So in our previous video we saw how to work with the command button, if then else statement, and for loops. If you want to know more about it, just click the bell icon above or wait for the video to end. Don't skip the video, try to watch the video completely, and by that way you will understand the logics. If you skip, probably you might miss one or two points that I'm trying to explain you in detail. The next logic that we are about to deal with is called while and until loop. Again, these are very simple logic that we are going to work. This time around I am not going to use a command button. Instead I'm going to write a code directly in a module, and then I'm going to run the module directly for us. So let's see how to do that. Again, there won't be a bigger change when we come back to the do while or do until loop. The coding will change a bit, and then the calculation option that I'm about to use will vary a little bit here. Other than that, most of the data sets will remain same, and this video is going to be very small because the video is not going to really make our life a little more bigger here. I'm going to create a spark shots here, which is not going to extend beyond 7 minutes time. So let's take up a Excel screen for us, and then we'll see how we're going to use this. I'm going to take a data set here, and then I'm going to just go back to our Alt F11, which will take you to Visual Basic application window, and then I'm going to give Alt IM, which will take me to my module here. Now for the first time I'm about to create a data set directly in a code here. For this you can still use the logic called procedure here. Again, generally I don't use it regularly, but again, if you're looking for the first time, you can do that. So when I go back to the insert, when I say procedure, this is a pop-up window that gives you about the procedure, what kind of data that you're going to write. Are you going to write a subroutine or a function or a property, whether it is a public or private? Probably in our previous video we saw a command button, so where when I opened the command button for the view code, I saw the private subroutine comes into play. You can either write just a subroutine or a public subroutine, which will not be connected to a button or any shapes here. Instead, you can just run the code directly here. So I'm going to just name the code alone here. I'm going to call this as do while loops, and then I'm going to give an OK. So that's going to give you a subroutine on a public base. When I give an OK, that's, you can see that there is a difference here. You can just write subroutine here. You don't want to write a public subroutine. The system will understand that as a public subroutine. But again, if I choose a public here, then it says public subroutine, the name of the code, and it's going to end the data set here. Again, we always start with the simple logic of dimensions. You don't need to have a dimension here, but again, I'm giving a dimension here. I'm going to just say call x as integer. Again, there are two different ways that I can do this here. One, I can give an integer. Another one is I can give a long here. We'll talk about a long a little later. So I'll just give you a small idea about how these data types can be used, or these data types can be fetched, and what that data type talks about here. Then I'm going to give the valuation of x is going to be 1, and then I'm going to tell the system that do while loop. And then I'm going to say whenever the x value is less than 5, go to that. And then last time we used a range function. This time I'm about to use a cells functionality with, I'll consider the x as my first row and the first column here. And then I'm going to just give the best practice here, dot value. You don't want to give a value there, you can add a valuation here. Then I'm going to tell the system that please add or go to the next line dimensions as we go forward, and then loop it. This is the code that I wrote for my do while loop. So now I'm going to populate this data. So when I say x1, that's going to become my first data set in my data list. I'm going to go back to my Excel sheet, and then I'm going to just press an Alt F8. Alt F8 will pop up my macro list, and then I can pick up the macro that I wish to run in my data set here. When I run this data set, automatically that's going to populate. And still, I'm thinking that I made a mistake. I'm sorry, I added another yes here. Sorry about that. So let me jump back here and then give an Alt F8, and then I'll just run the data so you can see it goes until the 4th line. I told system, this is the code that we wrote here. I said that I want the valuation of 20 to come from the first few data set until the value comes near to 5. So that's going to be 4 here. The one value below or before 5 will be 4 for us. If I want to give a do until loop, the only thing that changes here, the other thing is not going to change much. So I'm going to just take the same data set, copy the entire list, and this time around I'm going to copy it below the code. Then it separates the first code and second code automatically by adding a line here. I'm going to rename it because if I don't rename it, it's going to shout at me. So I'm going to just say do until, and then I'm going to keep most of the data set as it is, and then I'm going to just change the mark alone to equals to 5, and then I'll say until. And this time around I would like to set the data set to come. I want to mention the column also. I'm going to give y as 2, and then I'm going to call not the 1 but the y here. So now I'll even rename the numbers here. So when I do this particular coding, so now I have a do until loop comes into play. The codes are similar. I added 2 lines here. I want to just place the valuation in the next column. That's why I added the y is equal to 2, and then in the cells option, the x denotes the row and the y denotes the column. So I want the second column data set to be populated here. So when I give a close bracket, or then I'm going to just alt F8, and then I'm going to just say do until loop and then run that. Then that's going to give you the same answer. Again, the answer doesn't change. The only thing is I added a coding component a little better here. This is how we use a do while loop and do until loop. I'll show you. I'm just giving you an idea about how to use these options here, but again we can use them in a very different way altogether when I come back to the looping technique, or a single loop or double loop or triple loop in my future videos. At the time I'll be using for next loop 2 times in a data set here. So we'll see how we're going to use all of them. This is how we'll use our data set in our controls, and we are concluding our control video by this particular list. And then we saw how to use it in a systematic manner. Only we learned about it. Later on what we did is we created a command button and used 2 formulas or 2 coding with called if then else and then for loop. Then without the command button I used a do while and do until loop, and I showed you how to run it in our list here. So this is Vinod signing out from Excel Academy YouTube channel. Please do like, subscribe and share this video to all your friends and foes and your relatives and family, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon simultaneously, because all the next videos that I'm going to add before Diwali will be very interesting. I'm going to add 3 more videos on, probably 6 more videos on video number 4, 5 and 6 with the detailed dimensions here. Let's update ourselves and let's learn the coding better. Thank you so much. Happy coding.